What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about something pretty intriguing that's been happening in the Canadian housing market. Okay, so we've all heard about the ups and downs all over the place from all the different parts of the industry, and it may seem like every week we get a new headline or new news, right? But obviously we just got some news that might be a sign of some positive momentum, but we're going to talk about my thoughts later on it, especially when it comes to new construction. Let's dive into the information. So the latest report from CMHC came out recently, and it got some numbers that, starting to catch everyone's attention, right? So in July, the annual pace of housing starts jumped by 16% compared to June. Now, I know percentages can sometimes be a little bit abstract, so let me break it down a little bit. So in June, we were looking at an annualized rate about 241,000 units. Fast forward to July, that number shot up to 279,509 units. So pretty significant increase in just 1 month, okay? And the politicians like the housing minister and other government officials are really spouting that things are working, right? The government plan, the housing plan is working so far. And what's really interesting here is what's driving this jump, like what is behind the big increase. And it's not so much the single family homes that are making waves at all, right? This actually has stayed relatively flat. The real action is in the multi-unit projects. Okay, and we're talking about apartment buildings, condos, and other types of multi-family housing. So in fact, multi-family starts have surged 217,000 units in July, which is pretty close to record highs we haven't seen since the early 90s. So it's clear that the market is shifting toward these kind of developments, right? Multifamily rather than single family, which says a lot about where demand is heading. Now, what's so crazy is you look at Alberta, and what's happening there is actually remarkable. So the province saw housing starts exceeding 50,000 units for the first time since the oil boom of 2015. Now, why is that happening in Alberta? Well, a big part of it is the population growth, right? So many people are heading to Alberta right now. Alberta's seen a 4% increase in population over the last year. Just think about how big of an increase that is, driven by both international and interprovincial migration. I know so many people that I know personally, even family, that have moved to Alberta just because cheaper real estate, cheaper taxes, more opportunity, and a lot of them say, right? So people are moving to Alberta, and that's creating a real need for new housing. And it's a good example of how demographics can really drive construction trends. Now, if we shift our focus to Ontario, we're seeing a different story. So construction activity is still relatively strong, but the resale market is facing some challenges. So there's a lot of inventory on the market, as we know. We're starting to see it build up more and more. And investor interest it's been stale, right? But despite these things, construction is still holding its own. So interesting to note that while there's been a 13% reduction in the 12-month average of multi-unit starts from its peak in 2023, the numbers are still pretty solid. And one of the key shifts we're seeing is in the type of housing that's being built. So there's a noticeable pivot towards rental and affordable housing. And this is largely being driven by policy initiatives aimed at the housing affordability crisis. Okay, so in Toronto, for example, the construction of units meant for home ownership actually declined by nearly 20% since early 2023. Meanwhile, rental construction has been on the rise, reaching record levels. So this is providing much needed stability to a sector that's actually quite cyclical, okay? Now, before we get too carried away with that, it's important to keep in mind that housing starts are still below the highs we saw in 2021 and 2022, particularly for semi and semi-detached homes. TD Bank economist Maria Solayeva pointed out that even though we're seeing a rebound right now, we might see a decline in multifamily starts very soon. This is because pre-sale activity has been pretty weak over the past few years, and especially right now. With high borrowing, high construction costs, that could slow things down a lot. And it's something we need to keep our eyes on moving forward, because it's also important that if, let's say a builder has a showroom, they need to sell about 60% of their units to really start getting things moving, right? To get financing for construction. And so if pre-sale activity goes down a lot, it's really going to affect future housing starts, right? This is all, I would say, delayed information. What is more current is not even permits, but actual pre-sales of homes or sales of multifamily units, right? Current sales. There's definitely some strengths that we're seeing in the market, but overall, I think that, these numbers are just artificial boost from maybe past things that were done. And I think we're still going to see housing starts not be where they need to be. They need to be a lot higher than 279,000 units. They need to be a lot higher. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. We obviously now have high interest rates. We got a sluggish resale market. And the shift towards different types of housing, there's still strong drivers in the market that are keeping construction steady, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stay steady. I think they're going to slow down, okay? And with the ongoing demand for housing in Canada, this is an important trend to watch, right? Housing starts are very important. And obviously, we can't overlook the political side of everything either. Affordable housing has become a huge issue, and governments at all levels are doing what they can to boost new construction, to play it up to the media, to people that they're trying to help, right? It's probably one of the biggest issues in the country, if not the biggest, especially for rental and affordable units. And this push is starting to show up in the numbers, and it's likely to play a bigger role as we move forward into next year's Canadian election. And it's a good reminder that policy decisions can have a real impact on the housing market, right? So I guess to wrap everything up, while the resale market might be cooling off a bit, the construction side is still quite steady, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay steady, right? And this is particularly in the multi-sector unit, right? This is a trend that could have significant implications for the housing market moving forward, especially as we continue to navigate the challenges of high borrowing costs and different shifting demands. So, in my opinion, I think that we're going to see housing starts level off. Maybe they'll be stable for a few more quarters, but I think housing starts are not going to be able to keep growing like this. I think the costs for builders, the cost to get permits from the city, it's just so expensive for builders and developers to start these new projects, especially in places like Toronto, Vancouver. Like, it's insane. And then the amount that they need to sell in the pre-sale stage to start building, new construction starts in Toronto are essentially like at zero, right? And I've talked to people in the trades, and they're saying that a lot of people are not working right now. That is the reality right now, that a lot of people in the trades are not working. And that is not a good sign for future housing starts, right? Now, there's a lot of projects in Toronto that are being finished right now, right? So a lot of tradespeople are finishing them, but what's being started right now? Not a lot, right? And that is not good, right? High borrowing costs, the high construction costs, high material costs, cost to get permits from the city or the township is just, there's so much red tape for builders. And that's the thing. We need this supply, right? But we're not allowing builders to get the supply because of the crazy costs of everything, especially the permit building, the government prices, I would say, are just so high for these builders. So it's like, are we going to see this supply and the housing starts that we need to help the market? I don't think so. Not anytime soon. It's going to be a while for that to change, in my opinion, and I think it's going to be another few years until we see any sort of improvements on that front. So there's a lot of things moving against affordable housing, and I think affordable housing, it's like a myth. I don't think it'll ever be affordable again. It's just, I think, a way for politicians to play up, to their supporters and their audience. I think housing is now moved into this generational asset that gets pushed down to people's kids and their kids, because you look at Toronto and the people that live in these single detached homes, it's like multi-generational families that have been there for 100, 200 years that have lived in those houses, and now maybe they bought them for a few $1,000s and those houses are worth $2-3 million or more, right? And maybe they have multiple houses in the city. So, are we going to see affordable housing from the housing starts that we're seeing right now? Not a chance. So I'd love to know what you guys think about this information. If you guys really enjoyed the video, hit the like. Helps me push this video to a new audience who might really benefit from the information. And of course, I'll keep you guys up to date on everything in regards to mortgages and real estate. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.